JC is a 21-year-old woman presenting to the emergency room with extreme nausea. She tries to talk to the admitting physician, but she can only retch and dry heave. It didn't seem like there was anything left. JC was a college student. She had stopped off that morning at the cafeteria to get some breakfast so she could hang out before class. While she was eating, her roommate Rachel was studying at the desk. JC didn't really get along with Rachel. She thought Rachel was weird. And sometimes, Rachel would come in with her boyfriend. JC and her friends found them to be an awkward couple, and there were just so many jokes and memes to go around because of their situation. But none of that mattered. The cute, pig-shaped pastry was soft and delicious, and JC was just so happy to be eating such good food. The cafeteria was always delightful, but very quickly, JC could feel that something was wrong. Before she was going to leave for class, JC felt something turn over in her stomach. She involuntarily made horrible sounds. In the bathroom now, a movement emerged. It just happened so suddenly, and it wouldn't stop. As it kept going, JC could see her heartbeat in her field of vision. Other students in the dorm found her on the floor, and she's brought to the emergency room, where we are now. At examination, it was pretty clear what was happening. Nausea, abdominal pain, college cafeteria food. Sounds like food poisoning. Doing anything more than just watching and waiting might do more harm than good. But as the minutes pass, JC becomes hypotensive. Hypo meaning low, tension referring to blood pressure. Low blood pressure coupled with a fever that she has now. This not only gives more evidence that this is food poisoning, but also that it's a very horrible version that's happening. But why? When the bacteria or fungus that causes food poisoning makes its way into the bloodstream, it causes the immune system to react. Blood vessels get dilated. You're probably familiar with this. Whenever you have inflammation, for example, when you get a cut or when you get a zit, the area becomes swollen. And this is the immune system reacting, dilating the blood vessels. But zits and cuts are local. A zit doesn't swell your entire face. A cut on your hand doesn't swell your entire arm. But JC's reaction is her entire body. And this is called septic shock. Two things are done immediately. First, doctors order antibiotics. They don't know exactly which bacteria is involved, but they give a general one with broad coverage first. Then they take a sample of her blood so that they can culture and grow the bacteria in it to determine exactly which antibiotic will be best. And second, if blood pressure is low because the blood vessels are dilated, then it means that blood vessels have more space. So infusing fluid into the veins to push up against that space will help return blood pressure closer to normal and get blood flowing into the organs again. And this was given to her, but it wasn't enough. It's an hour later. JC's blood pressure is lower than before, but even worse, her heart rhythm is starting to become erratic. Typically, when patients remain hypotensive despite fluid resuscitation, medicines called pressors can be given. These constrict the blood vessels, and this was given to JC. But as the hour continues, JC starts having a heart attack. Hey, I got a quick question. If you're learning something from this video and you're not subscribed yet, I'd appreciate it if you did and come back to see the video that I post next month too. I make these videos for fun and I've been publishing on average one a month since 2017. No AI, I do almost every single part of making these videos because I genuinely enjoy making them. And I hope that you like my videos too. Appreciate you. JC's only 21. Heart attacks often happen because arteries get clogged over decades of unhealthy lifestyle choices, and they certainly don't happen because of food poisoning, meaning that something else is going on. But what is it? The emergency room started reporting that it had multiple college students all presenting with the exact same extreme nausea, abdominal pain, and hypotension that JC had. Some had fevers, others didn't. Everyone's hypotension worsened despite fluid resuscitation, and this gave one of the doctors a clue. A couple years earlier, this doctor had been working on research involving a particular kind of leukemia. Leuk from Greek leukos meaning white, referring to white blood cell, and emia meaning presence in blood, a cancer that makes too many white blood cells. 20 years earlier, the government had received reports of an herbalist in the north who was prescribing and dispensing natural therapies for cancer. This was based on a formulation that was described in a 2,000-year-old pharmacopoeia. When health investigators reached the herbalist, they became determined to study this therapy closer, but with modern techniques. And JC's doctor had worked on this research. He noticed that if too much was given, the patients would experience nausea, abdominal pain, and hypotension refractory to fluids and pressors. And sometimes it would look like they were having a heart attack. He suspected that all of these students coming in now, who had all the same signs and symptoms, may have somehow been poisoned with the chemical in that treatment. At this point, there were hundreds of students all coming in sick with the same problem. The hospital was overflowing, and some students had to be transferred to other facilities further out in town. Authorities were notified, and an investigation was started. The university chemistry lab had recently reported that some of its chemicals used for experiments were missing. At this particular lab, students and faculty needed to swipe their ID to enter. Entry logs were kept, so there were records of who had gone in. At the kitchen, utensils, containers, and food leftovers were taken in and inspected, and it was here where authorities found massive traces of one particular chemical that definitely wasn't supposed to be in food. This also happened to be the same chemical that was reported missing from that one particular lab. Typically, this lab didn't have students entering in late at night. It was the undergraduate facility, so people mostly just went in for daytime class and then left afterwards. It was unusual for someone to walk in past 11 at night, but when the records were analyzed, someone had used JC's roommate Rachel's ID to enter at 11 at night. When authorities went into Rachel's dorm, she wasn't there, but on the desk was a bag of powder. When they tested it, they found out that it was the chemical that was missing from the lab. The same chemical that was found on the cafeteria utensils, and the same chemical that JC's doctor had researched for leukemia and knew could cause all the signs and symptoms when too much was given to humans. This chemical was arsenic. Sometimes cafeteria food doesn't have the greatest selection, but one place where you can get great gourmet selection is this video sponsor, Cook Unity. Cook Unity is a chef collective that gets you restaurant-quality meals by award-winning chefs delivered fresh to your door. Every week, I choose a couple of meals. The system also knows what I have really enjoyed and can make informed decisions for me, and delivered to my door is a whole week's worth of lunch for me. These meals are amazing, and there's a huge variety. Let me show you some of my favorites. Slow-braised beef short rib with Peruvian beans and rice by Chef Walter Adriansen. The beef is tender, and the sauce, when mixed with the rice and beans, is amazing. It's the perfect mix of spicy and creamy with juicy short rib.
Amazing.
And take, for example, this Mediterranean pita smash burger with za'atar roasted potatoes by Chef Einat Admany. With every bite, there's the perfect mix of spices plus a little hint of heat that's mixed with this wonderful sauce. It's definitely one of my favorites. Cook Unity is offering everyone watching this video 50% off their first order. Click the link in the description below and use my code CHUBBY50 to try it out. Link in the description with code CHUBBY50. I highly recommend it. In the hospital, JC's brain was now swelling with water. Do you remember the fluids that were given for her hypotension? It was the correct treatment for what looked like septic shock that was happening at the time, except JC didn't have septic shock. She had arsenic poisoning, but they didn't know that. She wasn't hypotensive because of an immune reaction to bacteria. She was hypotensive because water was getting redistributed throughout her body by arsenic, while her cardiac and vascular smooth muscle were becoming dysfunctional. And everything happening to her makes sense now because of how arsenic poisons the body. The periodic table of elements gives us a guide. Each column is called a group. Elements in a group tend to behave similarly. It's just that when you go down a column, the elements get heavier, they get bigger, and certain features start to appear. Arsenic is in group 15. It can behave similar to phosphorus and nitrogen, and this tells us a lot because of where these are in the body. Let's start with phosphorus. Cells use ATP for energy, adenosine triphosphate. And proteins are made of amino acids. Amino from amine, which means from ammonia, which is made of nitrogen. And when cells need to make energy, they do that using enzymes, which are proteins, which are made from nitrogen. This starts to make sense now. Energy production comes from sugar. Chemically, the citric acid cycle sets up the cell to produce a lot of energy, and when arsenic is present, the enzymes that perform the citric acid cycle get broken. The body recycles enzymes. They're very expensive to produce, but when arsenic is present, the enzymes in the citric acid cycle can't be recycled anymore because arsenic breaks them and then energy production stops. But this isn't the only thing happening. In the body, arsenic takes a form that chemically and structurally resembles phosphate, called arsenate. And cells sometimes can't tell the difference. Cells will add phosphate to adenosine diphosphate, ADP, to make adenosine triphosphate, ATP. But if arsenic is present, instead of taking an additional phosphate, it takes an arsenate. This can't be used for energy, and the cell gets totally drained of its resources, and then it ceases to exist. This could explain JC's heart attack, but we know that arsenic does even more than this. Heart muscle has ion channels for its electrical conduction. These are proteins, and it appears that arsenic blocks these, altering heart rhythm, creating arrhythmia. As the rhythm keeps changing, it can possibly get the heart to shake in place. A full contraction can't happen as the muscle gets stuck in a loop. Blood can't get anywhere else in the body. This is cardiac arrest, and it can and will kill you in seconds. But luckily for JC, this hasn't happened yet. And it hasn't happened for the 800 other students who were poisoned from eating this unfortunate cafeteria food. But how did this happen? Investigators were able to gather the information. JC's roommate Rachel was notorious on campus. Her boyfriend Chad was a non-traditional student. He was at least 10 years older than everyone else. People weren't sure if he was actually a student, or if he was held back and just wanted to hang out in the classroom with others, or if he worked as an assistant for the university. But Chad was married with kids. Rachel knew this, and eventually other students knew this too. One evening, Rachel had become upset with Chad. She was about to graduate, and she wanted him to leave his family so that she could start her life with him. But he told her that that wasn't going to happen. He told her that their relationship would always be her as the woman on the side, and she couldn't take this. Rachel broke up with Chad and then accused and reported him for assault to the school administration. Chad was expelled, and when the other students found out what Rachel did, she became to them the funniest joke on campus, and some even petitioned for Chad's expulsion to be reversed. When Rachel found out that all the other students were and had been clowning on her, she came up with a horrible idea. When she was in chemistry lab, there was a chemical that the teaching assistants warned about. Despite it being a traditional medicine, it was well known throughout history as a poison because it was one that could be undetectable because it caused such a general sickness that would waste doctors' time in trying to find out what it was. Happy to take her revenge on others, she took all the chemical from the lab one evening. She didn't even think that swiping her ID would leave a record, and then she went to the cafeteria to dump it into the flour used to make pastries and noodles. And unfortunately, the kitchen staff in the morning had no idea that their flour was contaminated with arsenic. It has no taste, it has no odor, it has no color. And when it was breakfast and lunchtime, every student who ate dishes made from that flour, including pig-shaped pastries, became ill. The interesting thing about arsenic is that it isn't a metal. 20 different amino acids are combined to make up all of the proteins in our body, and 2 of these have sulfur. In the setting of heavy metal poisoning like mercury, lead, and thallium, the metals will interface with sulfur to break normal proteins, causing nerve damage, tissue damage, and wreaking havoc on the human body. When arsenic disturbs human proteins, it does so through sulfur, just like the heavy metals do, despite it not being a heavy metal. But if it does this, then it means that the treatment for arsenic could be the same one that's used for heavy metal poisoning. One answer could be to put sulfur in the body so that it can hold on to and capture the poison molecules and then neutralize them. This is called chelation. JC's doctor had noticed that her illness was similar to the patients who had received too much arsenic for leukemia. He was able to suspect this early enough to give her Suxmer. This would trap the excess arsenic in hopes that it would keep the poison away from body tissues and organs. When a mass poisoning situation seemed likely, he recommended this preemptively to the doctors for the patients who arrived early, but there wasn't enough to go around for 800 poisoned students. At the dorm room, authorities caught up with Rachel. Under pressure and with all the evidence presented against her, she cracked. She confessed and told them how it went down, and it was exactly as they were able to gather. Arsenic has an interesting history. We already covered how a pharmacopoeia from ancient China documented it as a therapy, but the Greeks knew it too, and the Romans called it arsenicum. The ancient world used it as a very discreet poison. It wasn't easily detectable, and the resulting illness was nonspecific. In medieval Europe knew it as inheritance powder. Today we can detect it, but it still has the ability to slip unnoticed sometimes. And arsenic poisoning wasn't always deliberate. During the Victorian era, green wallpaper was very popular. This green was achieved using copper arsenite, and eventually people had a concern that the dust and plaster fragments from the wallpaper would fall onto the floor, onto tables, and onto food, and onto beds while one was sleeping at night. There was a suspicion that this was causing illness. And summer humidity would make cellulose and wallpaper paste damp. This would grow mold that can convert the arsenic in the green dye to trimethylarsine gas that has a garlic odor and may have been responsible for then unexplained deaths inside homes that had this green wallpaper. And sometimes people would wear green clothes with this arsenic-laden pigment. It's hard to know if consumers actually died from this, but what we do know is that the workers who produced the wallpaper and the garments were ones who would suffer from chronic poisoning. Interestingly, one person who did get ill from arsenic in the ceiling was the US ambassador to Italy in the 1950s. White lead arsenate fell from rosettes on her bedroom's decorated ceiling in the US embassy because of a vibrating washing machine on the floor above, and it caused her to become so sick that she had to resign in 1956. Today, most arsenic poisoning cases are chronic, different from JC's acute poisoning case. It's the 53rd most common element in the Earth's crust, but the 22nd most abundant element in seawater. Arsenic in the groundwater gets consumed by more than 140 million people around the world. The low to moderate prolonged exposure causes a different set of problems distinct from JC's case. But arsenic causes cancer. It can cause the hyperpigmentation of the skin and keratosis, as well as a gangrene called Blackfoot disease. Because it can behave like a heavy metal in the body, it can cause numbing and weakness by damaging the nerves while causing liver damage, all over the span of years to decades with continued exposure. And of course, one of the most immediate problems coming from this chronic setting, just like the acute, is an increase in cardiovascular all-cause mortality, just like in JC's case. In the hospital, doctors were able to monitor her to make sure that her heart didn't stop beating. Her heart rhythm slowly started to revert back to normal. Outside of early chelation therapy, there isn't any other treatment for acute arsenic poisoning, and there's no telling what kind of long-term damage that any of the students who were poisoned will have later. But at least for now, JC was able to regain consciousness after several days in the hospital. Rachel was tried in court. The judgment was carried out swiftly, and she was sentenced. And luckily for JC and the 800 other students, they were all able to make a full recovery. This case happened in Henan province, China, in 1992. In English, you basically can't find anything about it. I found 2 short articles that were written about it, but the details were pretty different compared to articles written in Chinese. And just like in America today, it's not easy to find specific articles written in the early 90s because we just weren't so digital back then. Now, granted, China is the world's largest producer of arsenic, and America is probably not going to see a widespread epidemic of arsenic poisoning. But a mass event like this is always important to note, especially given how acute arsenic poisoning symptoms are nonspecific. It can look like food poisoning and then maybe sepsis. And by the time that it's determined to be neither of those, it's possible that it could be too late. Thanks so much for watching. Take care of yourself and be well.